The Boston Celtics have gotten off to a very impressive 5-0 start to begin this year's NBA season. They are currently the only undefeated team remaining in the NBA. And if I'm being 100% honest, 100% transparent with you guys, through these first 5 games of the NBA season, the Boston Celtics, they look so much better than the rest of the NBA. And you watch this team, you see it, and the stats also prove it as well. Right now, the Boston Celtics, they're number 1 in points per game, averaging 126 points per game, which is pretty nuts. And then also, they are getting after it on the defensive side of the ball as well. They are tied with multiple teams in the NBA to have a top 5 defensive rating in the NBA. So right now the Boston Celtics are playing so well, so dominant. They are the only undefeated team left, and they are the only team in the NBA that have a top 5 defense and a top 5 offense. And I know 5 games is a very small sample size, but if you watch the Boston Celtics, they definitely have that feeling to them, the way that they're dominating, that this may be a historical team, and I think it's something that they could sustain over the entire regular season if they're able to remain healthy. They look that good so far through their first 5 games. And with the Boston Celtics looking so dominant and playing so well, it has made me think that the Milwaukee Bucks may have made a mistake allowing their rivals to get their hands on Jrue Holiday. And I say these two teams are rivals. The 2021-2022 NBA season, they met up in the playoffs on the road to the NBA Finals, where they thugged it out in a 7-game series where the Boston Celtics came out on top. And also, as long as Jason Tatum and Giannis Antetokounmpo are in their primes, I think these teams are going to meet a few more times in the playoffs on the road to that NBA championship. But nonetheless, the Milwaukee Bucks did not directly give Jrue Holiday to the Boston Celtics over the summer. They make that trade for Damian Lillard, and in order to do so, they had to give up Jrue Holiday. But as soon as Jrue Holiday gets to the Portland Trail Blazers, they announced that he is for sale, and the Boston Celtics, they put together a package to land Jrue Holiday, and prior to this move, they already made a trade to land Kristaps Porzingis. And of course, to get these players, the Boston Celtics did lose some key contributors from last season. They lose the Time Lord Robert Williams, one of my personal favorite players. They also lose Marcus Smart, and they also lose Malcolm Brogdon, but they brought in Kristaps Porzingis, and they also brought in Jrue Holiday. And in my opinion, bringing in these two guys, the Milwaukee Bucks have played a hand in giving the Boston Celtics, I think this is a perfect starting 5, and we're going to talk about why they're the perfect starting 5, especially for today's NBA. And we can start on the offensive side of the ball. We talked about this in the intro of our video. The Boston Celtics right now are averaging 126 points per game for the most in the NBA, and they've also been the most efficient team in the NBA as they rank number 1 in offensive rating. And then another thing, they have the biggest net rating in the NBA by far. So far they're just destroying their competition. But nonetheless, we look at this offense and it is just perfect for today's NBA. And I think the number one thing that stands out about this team is the spacing. And we look at this new starting 5 with the new additions. Big Al Horford, he moved to the bench, and he started their most previous game against the Brooklyn Nets due to Derek White having his second baby. But their normal starting 5 is Jrue Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kristaps Porzingis. And the number one thing that stands out to me about this starting 5 is that all 5 of these guys can really shoot the 3-point shot. So it makes it really hard for defenses to help and to rotate when you have 5 guys to knock down that 3-point shot. And to make matters even worse, all 5 of these guys, even Kristaps Porzingis, they can put the ball on the floor, they can create for themselves, they can create for others, and also, most importantly, all 5 of these guys can put pressure on the rim, leading to a lot of drive and kick threes. So just off their freelance alone, and just out there playing basketball, running pick and rolls, or letting guys go to work, just off that alone, they're gonna get a lot of open looks, because you're not gonna know when to double, who to double, and when to help or when to stay home, because all of these guys are so good at getting downhill and also knocking down the catch and shoot threes. So I think that component of this offense makes them very hard to stop. And then Coach Joe Mazzulla, he has a bunch of great plays for these guys. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're letting Jrue Holiday and Derek White run the show. They're getting a lot of easy looks. Their ISO game looks really well. Kristaps Porzingis has been posting up and doing what he's supposed to do on the low block, and then also he's knocking down wide open 3-point shots. And this offense has just been poetry in motion so far. And what's so scary is that these guys they're probably still learning each other. They just got together this summer. We're only 5 games into the NBA season, and with them still figuring each other out, they're still playing some very high level basketball. So I think on the offensive side of the ball, the new additions of Jrue Holiday being a playmaker, a guy that can play off the ball. Same thing with Kristaps Porzingis, a guy that can set screens, a guy that can catch lobs, he can knock down the 3-point shot. And then also he can make his own moves, whether it's in the post or taking a bigger guy off the dribble on the perimeter. It just makes this offense very, very tough to figure out and very tough to stop. And it's really the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. And so really this defense is also perfectly built for the modern NBA. These 5 guys, they're all comfortable with switching. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they can hold their own on most of the bigs in today's NBA. Now, I wouldn't be comfortable switching them onto guys like Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, but we all know back to the basket play is something that is dying in today's NBA. There's not too many guys in the NBA that a coach plays through them consistently on the low block. But nonetheless, and the same thing with Derek White, Jrue Holiday, these guys are so good on the defensive side of the ball. They get down low with a bigger guy trying to score on them. They're really good with their hands, getting strips, and also blocking shots around the rim. So that's one thing I love about this defense. They have guys that when teams try to mismatch hunt, they can get out and switch. And the same thing with Kristaps Porzingis. He is 7'3" tall, very long wingspan, and he's very mobile for his size. So if a guard tries to take him out on the perimeter, make a move on him and throw up a 3, he has a pretty good chance with his wingspan of getting a block or getting a really good contest on that shot. Or if he gets blown past, he can get that chase down block. He's a really good rim protector. So I love the portability and the switchability of this Boston Celtics defense with their starting 5. And then also they have multiple guys to pit on opposing teams' best perimeter players. They really have 4 lockdown defenders in their starting 5. Jrue Holiday, he's known as the best perimeter defense in the league, and that's what his peers say. Every time they ask who's the best perimeter defender, they say Jrue Holiday, and he also gets that nod whenever they ask who's the most underrated player. They say Jrue Holiday. Derek White, another great perimeter defender, coming off a season where he made an all-defensive team. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, also 2 great perimeter defenders. So having all these different guys that can defend the wings is great for today's NBA, because we see so many teams that have 2 guys on the floor that can score from the perimeter. We look at teams like the Phoenix Suns, who have Kevin Durant, and they have Devin Booker, and now they have Bradley Beal. We look at the Golden State Warriors, who have Chris Paul, they have Stephen Curry, they have Klay Thompson, they have Andrew Wiggins. So in today's NBA, there's just a bunch of wings that can score from the perimeter. And with the Boston Celtics having this starting 5, it makes it very hard on who you want to pick on. So I love the Boston Celtics with the new additions, how much better they got on both the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. Well, I shouldn't say how much better they got defensively, because over the last 3 or 4 years, they've been great defensive teams. But nonetheless, adding Kristaps and Jrue Holiday to this Boston Celtics team, adding these guys to Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Al Horford, has definitely, in my opinion, made them a better ball ball club than we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years. I think this team is very scary. And another point I want to bring up, we talk about the rival team, the Milwaukee Bucks. And I told you guys how these guys, Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday, they just came to this team over the summer, and they probably are not in full-fledged chemistry mode just yet. They're probably still learning each other and how they like to play out on the court, but they've still been able to dominate their competition. You look at the flip team, the Milwaukee Bucks, who I think has a really good roster and a really good basketball team. They haven't been able to come out the gate and still dominate over their chemistry issues. We've seen them go up and down so far this season and lose to some teams that we thought that they would beat pretty easily. They lost to the Toronto Raptors and the Atlanta Hawks. And I don't think it has nothing to do with the talent, but just the chemistry. And I expect them to figure that stuff out. But I just want to point how different these two teams look at the beginning of the season. So that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you agree or disagree, make sure you leave a like and then subscribe for more weekly NBA content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.